Hello again, everybody. This is Rocket Rick J18, and today we're going to take a closer look at my 1952 Bowman set. Um, in addition to the issue from Bowman, uh, the blockbuster initial Topps uh, major set uh, sort of leapfrogs over Bowman in kind of to the lead in baseball collecting cards, um, as opposed to the virtual monopoly that Bowman enjoyed between the years 1948 and 1951. The 51 set is generally regarded as a blockbuster set, largely because of the presence of the two behemoth rookie cards of Mickey Mantle and Willie Mays. There are no comparable rookie cards in the 52 set. Also, the 52 set is about 1/3 smaller than the 51 set. And as a result of there being fewer cards, there are also a few star cards that were in the 51 set that are not in the 52 set. Most notably, the um, Ted Williams and Jackie Robinson cards. The 52 set is also sort of a carryover in terms of style and format from the 51 set. Uh, Again, it features art reproductions of black and white photographs. The text box in the 51 set is replaced by a facsimile signature, and the size of the card remains the same. The backs are also very similar to the 51 set. Just a bit more of the space is devoted to the ad, and there is a premium offer as well. You say the 52 set is a beautiful card set, so don't misunderstand me when I say it's maybe not as popular as either the 51 set or the 52 Topps counterpart. However, it's just about 150 cards fewer than there are in the Topps set, and it's there are a few cards, however, in the 52 Bowman set that Topps didn't get in their set, and they include um, Stan Musial, Casey Stengel, and Ralph Kiner. And while the 52 Topps set is known for some errors and variations, the 52 Bowman set, there's only one known variation, and that's card number 248, Bill Worley, which can be found without the initial W in his signature or with it. And that's it. Everything else seems to be kind of as advertised. As in previous other vintage issues, cards are distributed in 6 card packages with a stick of gum. And the gum, of course, leads to some staining problems, and that's pretty well known in the set. So, with those items in mind, let's take a look at the cards themselves, and we'll move the camera around just a little bit in order to make that happen. Okay, let me just make a small adjustment here, and so you'll be able to see the cards better. So this is the first page of the card set, and we start out with up there in the number one position with Yogi Berra, and next to him, Ralph Kiner, and then both of them are Hall of Famers. Ralph Kiner. I'm sorry, it's not Ralph Kiner. It's Bobby Thompson, obviously. Um, Not a very smooth segue, was it? Well, that's why I'm an amateur. Robin Roberts, the fourth card, is also a Hall of Famer. And then Pee Wee Reese, there at the bottom, is a Hall of Famer. Minnie Minoso next to Roberts, a Hall of Famer. So there's quite a few Hall of Famers on the first page, as well as some other notable, very good players, the aforementioned Bobby Thompson, and also Mike Garcia, who was a key member of the rotation for the Cleveland Indians in the 1954 season coming up. There's Ralph Kiner on page 2, and he represents the only Hall of Famer on this page. Also, players of note and worthy of mention: Ed Lopat, one of the key members of the pitching staff for the world champion New York Yankees in 1951 and the repeat champions in 1952. Moving on to page 3, we've got Nellie Fox, Hall of Famer there in the third spot on page 3. Carl Furillo, the Brooklyn Dodger right fielder, have one of the great arms, outfield arms in baseball at the time. Known more for his contributions in the broadcast booth than on the playing field. The last card on page 3 is Joe Garagiola. Joe, of course, grew up with Yogi Berra in St. Louis, and he was scouted by the Cardinals, and Berra really was not. And as a result of not paying attention to the other catcher in St. Louis, the Yankees were able to swoop in and claim a great Hall of Fame player in Yogi Berra. Not just a good one, but nobody has ever won more World Series championships, their team, than Yogi Berra. He's the number one, even outpacing Joe DiMaggio with 9, Babe Ruth with 7, Mickey Mantle with 7, Lou Gehrig, I'm not quite sure how many, maybe 6 or so, or 7, something like that. But anyway, Yogi far outpaces all the rest. On page 4, the first Hall of Famer there is in the first row. That's Al Schoendienst. And the 1950 rookie Gil McDougall, who was a key player during the Yankees' dominating decade of the 50s. Al Dark, who later became the manager of the San Francisco Giants and led them to a pennant in 1962. On Page 5, we start off with Vic Raschi, another one of the key pitchers in the Yankee uh, starting rotation. Whitey Lockman, one of the key outfielders for the New York Giants, alongside of Monty Irvin and Willie Mays. Down in the bottom row, you start out with Bob Feller, the great pitcher for the Cleveland Indians, who ultimately won 266 games, I believe, while missing a good solid 4 years to his participation in the Navy in World War II. Next to Bob is great Brooklyn Dodger catcher and Hall of Famer Roy Campanella. And then finally, finishing out that row, the Boston Red Sox shortstop Johnny Pesky. And many of you may know that in Fenway Park, the right field foul pole is known as Pesky's pole, as Johnny was known for hitting his few home runs right down the line, which was very short in Fenway Park, and kind of wrapping it around Pesky's pole. So that's how it got its name. On the next page, 6, there are a couple of Hall of Famers on that page down in the bottom row, beginning with Phil Rizzuto on the left and Richie Ashburn in the middle. Also worth mentioning, Billy Pierce, the left-handed pitcher for the Chicago Cubs, or White Sox rather, at this time. He later achieved some note with the San Francisco Dodgers. So that's page 6. On page 7, there are no Hall of Famers. Tommy Byrne in the bottom row and Irv Noren did some time with the New York Yankees and got a couple of championship rings among them. Clyde King was a pretty steady pitcher for the Brooklyn Dodgers up there in the top row. And that's really about it as far as worth mentioning. Start off the next page, page 8. With Roy Smalley, and I mention him because he is the father of another Major League Baseball player, Roy Smalley Jr. Also on that top row are Hank Bauer, who was a very key member, again, of the dominating New York Yankees teams in the 50s. Sal Magley, a great pitcher for the New York Giants, nicknamed the Barber for his penchant for giving hitters a close shave. And then down on the bottom row, we have Carl Erskine and Vern Law, two great right-handed pitchers, one Carl Erskine with the Brooklyn Dodgers and Vern Law with the Pittsburgh Pirates. Of course, Vern Law played a key role in the 1960 National League and world champion Pittsburgh Pirates. We start off the next page, page 9, with Jerry Coleman of the New York Yankees, and finish that first row with Hall of Famer George Kell, the Detroit Tigers. Another player in the second row who really was very instrumental in the success that his team had, Del Ennis, uh, was on the 1950 National League champion Philadelphia Phillies. And in the bottom row, we finish out with another Hall of Famer, uh, recent Hall of Famer, Gil Hodges, who was elected by the Veterans Committee, or what used to be called the Veterans Committee. I'm not sure what it's called now. In the page 10, on the right side is Sam Jethro, who was a Rookie of the Year with the Boston Braves. Pictured in a St. Louis Browns uniform was the former St. Louis Cardinal shortstop Marty Marion, who was a great fielding shortstop, although didn't hit very much. Next to, at the end of that second row is Mickey Vernon, who did win a batting title, thereby robbing Al Flip Rosen of a potential Triple Crown. I think that was in 1952. I'm not 100% sure of that, but you can check me. But he definitely robbed Al of a Triple Crown shot, and only by like a half of a point in the batting race. We've talked about Eddie Waitkus with the Phillies before. His chief claim to fame was being the kind of the role model for the movie The Natural for Roy Hobbs, and in that Eddie Waitkus actually was shot in a hotel room, I believe in Chicago. I'm not 100% sure of that, but wherever it was, he got on the wrong end of a gun, and that's never a good place to be. In the middle of the next page is Luke Easter, who was a prodigious home run hitter for the Cleveland Indians. The story goes that in one of his very first at bats, Luke, in his excitement, picked up the fungo bat, took it to home plate, and it went unnoticed until he hit a home run with it. The umpire, noting the distinctive sound made by the fungo bat, called him out for using an illegal bat. So he lost a home run, lost a hit, and that certainly tamed his excitement for the day. And I think we'll just move on to page 12. And of course, the guy in the middle of the first row needs no introduction. That's Mickey Mantle. And really, again, a very attractive card. Mickey's just shy of 21 years old in this picture. So this is his first year with the without Joe DiMaggio patrolling center field, and so he took over the duties at center, coming off of a really horrible knee injury suffered in the World Series when. So again, the story has it that after being told by Casey Stengel to catch anything he could get to, Joe called him off late, they say, for a fly ball, and Mickey, trying to stop, got his spike caught in the sprinkler and ahead, and just tore his knee up. And first of many leg injuries as a professional. Of course, he had suffered osteomyelitis from a football injury when he was in high school and nearly lost one of his legs because of that. So his career was just plagued with leg problems as a result of those two, the illness and then the injury on top of it. Only one Hall of Famer on the next page. Oh, I'm sorry, there's two. Larry Doby down in the bottom left-hand corner, and next to him in the center of that row, Duke Snider. Both Doby and Snyder were key elements of their team's success. And Duke Snyder, if you check the numbers on this, but I believe it to be the case, has the record for the most number of home runs hit by a major leaguer in the decade of the 50s. So despite the presence of Mickey Mantle, Willie Mays, Ernie Banks, and many other great hitters, Yogi, Roy Campanella, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Duke was number one in the decade of the 50s, so that's a little piece of trivia. On the next page, we have, which is page 14, we don't have any Hall of Famers, and really not any great players. These were all, of course, they're all, what am I saying? They're all great compared to me and most of us, but not compared to some of the other guys that are in this set. Some pretty great players on page 15, however, and that is in the middle of the top row is Don Newcomb, who was a great pitcher for the for the Brooklyn Dodgers in the many times that they played the Yankees in the decade of the 50s. The guy who later became a manager of the I'm sorry, that's not the right player, but the rest of that page is pretty non-famous, I guess you would say. Although Dick Sisler, up in the top left-hand corner of paragraph of this page, was the son of Hall of Famer George Sisler. The apple fell some distance from the tree, however, when it came to his son. On the next page, page 16, we do have one Hall of Famer, and that's a 300-game winner, early win with the Cleveland Indians, who was a member of that 54 team as well. On the next page, 17, we do have a Hall of Famer or two. We have, Johnny Mize up there in the left-hand corner, and then also of some fame, Leo Durocher, the Giants manager at this time. He did not go with the team out to San Francisco, however. And Al Rosen, a slugger with the Cleveland Indians, who, as mentioned, nearly won the Triple Crown, I believe this year, so 1952. And the great Brooklyn Dodgers third baseman Billy Cox is as sure-handed a third baseman as maybe ever played, with maybe one or two exceptions. Up in the on the next page, which is uh, page 18. We have Warren Spahn, the Hall of Fame pitcher for the then Boston Braves, later the Milwaukee Braves and Atlanta Braves. Warren Spahn won 363 games. He is the winningest left-handed pitcher in modern Major League history. That is since 1901. Also in the Hall of Fame, down at the bottom right-hand corner, is Monty Irvin. Also some players of note, Jackie Jensen, Eddie Stanky. Those were key players on the Yankees and the Cardinals, respectively. I would mention that Monty Irvin, in addition to his contributions on the field, was also something of a mentor to a young Willie Mays and helped him get acclimated to playing baseball at the major league level. Moving on to page 19, we have some pretty good players on that page, maybe not quite Hall of Famers. However, down in the bottom left-hand corner, Walt Dropo was a Rookie of the Year for the Boston Red Sox, and Preacher Rowe was a great left-handed pitcher for the Brooklyn Dodgers. Moving on to page 20, we again really don't have any Hall of Famers, although Gene Woodling down there in the middle row on the right side was a great contributor for the Yankees during this period of time, and great catcher in a catching pose, which we do see some of. Was Ed Fitzgerald for the Pittsburgh Pirates. That's a great looking card, I think. On the next page is Joe Collins, who is a Hall of Famer, and although not non-Hall of Famers, still very well known and great players, I think. The Phillies left-handed pitcher Curt Simmons, who was later traded to the St. Louis Cardinals. I believe that was in the Bill White trade for 1964. Jimmy Pearsall for the Boston Red Sox, kind of a quirky outfielder. You may remember he wrote a book called Fear Strikes Out, which was made into a movie starring a not very gifted baseball player, Anthony Perkins, who struggled to look like he was playing the game in the movie, I think. So also down there next to Jimmy Pearsall is Chuck Dressen, the manager for the Brooklyn Dodgers. Moving over to page 22, in the middle of the top page was a very steady pitcher for many years with the Pittsburgh Pirates, Bob Friend, who was from Pittsburgh, and later had some local notoriety as the water commissioner for the city of Pittsburgh. Of course, the fella down there in the bottom row in the left-hand corner is Stan Musial. He needs no introduction. You can see my example is all but torn in half, so I may someday look to upgrade that card. In fact, I'm going to pull this out of here right now and set it aside uh, so that I can make note of it. I won't forget, maybe. Uh, Moving on to page 23. Uh, Again, no Hall of Famers, and no one really uh, worth spending a lot of time on. Point out in the second row on the right, there's Andy Pafko, who occupies the number one card position in the 1952 top set. So that's he got a little notoriety for that. On the next row, page 24, again, no Hall of Famers, but there in the bottom row on the left-hand side is Ray Boone, somewhat worthy of mentioning that he is the father of Philadelphia Phillies catcher Bob Boone and the grandfather of Brett Boone and the current Yankee skipper, at least for a few more weeks, Aaron Boone. The catcher for the Boston Red Sox, Matt Batts, is the last card on this page. And one of my favorite stories, which appeared in Ted Williams' book, My Turn at Bat, Ted describing himself as going up to the in the batting cage and hitting 8 or 9 consecutive line drives to left field. And he turned around and leaning up against the bat cage saw Matt Batts, and he said, "You see that, Batts?" He said, "I can hit the left field whenever I want to, but they don't pay me to hit the left field." So despite the shift, Williams still managed to accumulate Hall of Fame numbers and baffle pitchers. On the next page, page 25, we have 2 Hall of Famers on the top row. Yankee manager Casey Stengel, who was in the kind of in the first half of his run of 14 American League pennants in 16 seasons, which is certainly a record. And next to him, another guy who needs absolutely no introduction, but has a beautiful card in this set, a second-year card of Willie Mays. Willie Mays is, I think, as I said, in the tabletop display of Willie, probably gives Babe Ruth a run for his money as the greatest player in the history of baseball. If it's not Willie, it certainly is Babe, and I think that's at least among the position players. On the next page, we have Enos Slaughter down in the bottom left-hand corner with the St. Louis Cardinals, and he later came over to the New York Yankees and played several years with the Yankees. On the next page, again, no Hall of Famers, but a couple of players worth mentioning. One is in the first card in the second row, Roy McMillan, shortstop for the Cincinnati Reds. Later in this, a little bit later in the 50s, the Reds became known as the Red Legs, supposedly as a reaction to the Red Scare of Joe McCarthy and some other less than savory characters uh, who made it tough for people to make a living, I think, during this time period. But Roy McMillan's one of those players that I think every set collector has one or two of them. Roy McMillan's one of mine, and that is that whatever set you're working on, he seems like he's always one of the first cards I was able to get. And I just feel like that's probably if this happens to you or happened to you, make a note in the comments below. And I'm just curious because that's something that I felt was part of being a set collector. Also of note in the first position on the bottom row, Mel Parnell was the great left-handed pitcher for the Boston Red Sox during this time period, and certainly the ace of their starting pitchers. In the last page in the set, and the first card on that page is Lou Burdett, who was the MVP of the 1950s, or I think he was the MVP. Anyway, he won 3 games in the 1957 World Series to help lead the then Milwaukee Braves to a world championship over the New York Yankees. In the middle position there is the card that I mentioned at the outset of this video of William Worley. His variation, which is missing the W in his signature in his last name, I believe, is the only variation in the set. So that's and then we close it out with the great Yankee coach and former player Frank Crosetti, Crow as he was nicknamed, and that completes the 1952 set. Thank you for being with me, and as always, I like to close my videos by saying that I wish you all of your collecting dreams coming true. And this is Rocket Rick J, 18.